Welcome to Two Feathers Restorations and Design in Deerfield, Massachusetts. On this episode of What's Going On in Shop, we are going over a project that we had completed last month, and it was what was to be, as every vintage trailer that comes in, a simple project. Well, as much as you would like it to be, they don't always intend to end up that way. Just the nature of the beast due to the age. In this case, customer comes in, it appears that they had accidentally pulled some of the siding away, getting the trailer caught on something. Well, with our years of experience, over 20 years in the industry, siding just doesn't pull off that easy. Something's going on underneath. But it's a family who's just starting out in the camping world with their young family. And we said we will take a look, see what's going on underneath, and see what's underneath this tin can skin. Reality, it's aluminum, and it's very thin. But we had seen some signs here that put up red flags, so we're going to go over this with you. In this picture, you can see some odd-looking screws that don't match the rest of the screws that you see on a camper. So this is a very good camper to kind of go over with. And these folks are not experienced into knowing what to look for. They had no idea that it's good to find a reputable shop to have their trailer inspected at. Had they, we would have been able to point these out to them. So here again, some sealant that's not normal. It's been painted over. The whole entire trailer has been painted with house paint. Totally inappropriate for a trailer. It will not hold up like the original type of paint that was on here. Now here's a prime example. When you start to take the trailer apart because they painted over all the sealant, it's going to end up looking bad when it's put back together. Now, the basis is the original butyl tape is what went bad and should have been replaced. Well, it goes on beyond that. And so these few photos are just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up of what we discovered. However, we have video here that we are going to review and show you really what we found. And this is the kind of thing that you will discover that people do. This is not original construction that you're seeing here. Notice the white powdery substance that you see. You can see bubbling underneath that paint. Well, in this photo, and I'll point out later on in the video here with some arrows, they use pressure-treated lumber. You never, ever, ever use pressure-treated lumber against aluminum. It will actually eat it. Now, here's a comical photo that we just had to throw in. On this trailer, there's a brad nail that's pressed up against the wood. It was never actually used in a function. It just fell into that spot and it kind of got crushed against the skin and the wood itself. But that's also a prime example of how they made the wood joints stay together. They used scrap pieces of metal from leftover scraps from the siding and used it to attach two pieces of wood together instead of screwing it together, which they didn't have back then, like we do today. Here you can see some more previews of what's to come. You can see the insulation thickness of what came on these trailers. Just so you know, that's a very low R value. That might be half a point for an R value. So in reality, it's really no insulation at all. When we go to some other details here, we'll come back to the other complaint. They had hit somewhere along the lines. This trailer has hit a curb or a rock, so it's all bent out of shape. We ended up loosening it up, but we also had to heat up the metal and bend it back into shape. So that was a few hours worth of work there. The actual hardware for this step is actually welded to the chassis, so it's not like you can unbolt it and change it out with a new one. Here's a little bit better picture. You can see how it's really, really out of whack. When it left, it was in perfect working order. You just have to know what you're doing, and you retemper the metal as well. So it's a bit of a process. Here's another highlight, some residue from termites. So you never know what you're going to find on trailers. It's not often you see termites on a camper. In fact, it's very rare. Whoever had this trailer did this repair that we're going to be highlighting here today, and they left a lot of wood that was termite damaged. Here's some more of that white powder from that reaction between this piece of pressure treated lumber and the aluminum. You can really see the bubbles here. It's created pinholes into the aluminum. Later in the video here, we're going to show that we just use some ice water barrier product on the back side, just so that there is no way for water to pass through. Someday when the funds are available with this customer, they can choose to go ahead and replace the siding on this trailer. You've got about $3,000 worth of metal to replace here. And bear with this camera here for a minute here. Trying to flip the metal and hold the camera with one hand is not easy. You can see it hasn't been cleaned yet, but you can still see that powder. You can, maybe if you look carefully there, you can probably see some light that came through. This is the panel that goes on the bottom side of that bunk area. You can clearly see the white powder. Now, originally these panels had enamel that was baked on. Ray here is getting ready to remove the rooftop vent. You can see the patch panels somebody has put in, around the lower parts of that wall. It's completely rotted away. You'll see in the later segments of this video. Around that top left corner there, you can see where water penetration. That's again that particular. Yeah, here you go. Here's a good shot of those patch panels. But near that ceiling is the butyl tape has failed, and so water has trickled in. Our golden rule, 7-10 years, somewhere around there, depending upon the environment in which the trailer is stored, butyl tape will start to dry out. Modern day production, including what we do in our shop on a restoration, once the butyl tape has had a time to equalize its pressure, we will trim it, and we may have to do a second trimming, but we'll go back with a clear silicone. And silicone, yes, it's a sealant, but more importantly, it is to prevent the oxygen from getting to the butyl tape primarily. So this is a quick walkthrough, speed it up, because we like to keep our videos under 20 minutes. You can see a lot of the rooftop panels have a lot of water damage. This will be typical of a Shasta or any camper of this vintage, 63, 64. This style came out, I believe, 1959. These generations of trailers. They're working on removing these side panels. Here's where we're pointing out the pieces of pressure treated lumber that was utilized. Now the plywood is not pressure treated, so that we were able to reuse. It was the correct thickness in the end, so that was indeed okay. We're getting a little peek here of how they left pieces of wood in place. There was a lack of care in how they had done the repair, so we can only assume this was an amateur repair. Somebody that actually had no woodworking skills. This panel that Ray's working on here was the only panel that they had removed, and they used a mess load of brad nails. I know Ray spent a couple hours just pulling each individual brad nail out. We're taking a peek in here to kind of see a prelude of what in the world are they doing. They put some very short pieces of wood in here, and this is a very, not this bottom one, but the one on the top. That one is a very, very, very important piece of lumber. These bunks, the construction is a counterlever style construction, and that's probably one of your most important piece of wood. Later in the video here, we'll point that out in more detail for you. But Ray is still working on this, so we ended up removing both of these upper panels on both sides. Here you can see the termite damage they just left in place. No active termites, of course. We thought we had seen some potential, but after we had reviewed our videos, but no, it was all old. Clearly, that kind of stuff, I would have to assume that they had this bottom panel off before, so I assume some of this termite activity might have still been active when somebody had done this repair initially. And they mostly did liquid nails. There's a single screw right there that they had used. Shockingly, they used a screw. Very unsafe construction. Now, if you were to redo your camper, just don't follow what this person had done. You know, you can see those little dots there. That's what we thought were larvae when we went back and looking, when it really was just some debris. Now, we do teach classes here at Two Feathers Restoration and Design. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we weren't able to go through with that this year for this summer, for the spring and the fall. We have no classes scheduled. We can give some private instruction. That is available on limited basis. We are working as a skeleton crew right now. We have been forced to go down to 2 staff members. Now, this is a very important. This is the piece of lumber that I talked about. We widened it, so it's a 4-inch wide board now, where before it was only a 3-inch. We replaced it on both sides, so it allows some additional capacity, because nowadays we're a little bit heavier. We also have this screwed in. Now, we like to use deckmate screws in particular. They're coated, they won't rust. But all of our joints are screwed. Sometimes we do glue depending on the situation, but more importantly, it's screwed. All our under pieces going across from side to side have been replaced, and at this point we have also replaced the wood that's above the front window. Jill here is going ahead and removing any potential nails or brads or anything that might become an issue when we go and put the skins back on. You can see that we have a 2x4 clamped in place. By the way, when you rebuild something like this, you need to have the trailer leveled out. We do have jacks underneath the trailer, where this trailer has been completely leveled. When this trailer was redone by somebody, it was off square. So when we put it back together, it did bring it back. It was out of square, at least 1/4 of an inch, somewhere around there. Not terrible, but this gives you an idea how we raised the roof. You can see how we've supported it. You got to do it in a way where you won't create any creases in that roof, because the roofing is bent over on the edges, so you have to properly support it as well. Now, in a minute here, we're going to change over, but we have the trailer protected on the back end with plastic, as well as our toolboxes and whatnot, because we were shellacking panels to replace the panels where the bottom sections, the bottom 4 or 5 inches, had rotted away from the water damage. Now, when you go to use these panels, now these are birch. We have a special mix that we use, and it takes several coats, and we have one that we have colorized. Once it reaches the color that we want, we then use 2 or 3 coats of clear, that, in other words, without the colorization in it. So it's real shellac that we utilize. So these are panels that take care of that front section that you saw that was removed, and the side panels. Then also we replaced the panels on either side below those 2 front side windows, because those are typical spot that rot out. And there were some pieces of wood. The lower sills were rotted out as well. Now you can see here we have the ice water barrier just tacked in there. Now that's going to make it a little bit more difficult attaching that front panel a little bit. It's not going to fit exactly as it was before, because it is taking away some space. So we ended up, in the end, the owner chose to go with a different piece of trim that we used on, let's say, a Ciro Scotti, that allowed us to cover up the holes. But that was the only option we had in here. He's fine with it. We wouldn't have done it without the customers okay. But these are just kind of scenes where this is a prime example. My staff have not done one of these bunks. I've done a few myself, and so they had their idea. So we had a little challenge in the shop. So Ray here, he's been with us for a couple of years, and we have not had a bunkhouse come in the time that he's been with us. So Jill there, she's our rookie, and that's in training. And so here Ray's giving me a little bit of a challenge of an argument, and I says, well, the way you're thinking you're going to do it is not how you're going to do it. So if you have a trailer like this and it has a little bit of a bump up of a roof, you really need to start from the back of the trailer where it's still attached and work your way forward. Trying to push it down and start from the front and then work your way back is just not going to work on those things. How do I know? Well, I learned the hard way. You learn by trial and error. And believe it or not, when he listened to me, well, if we put money on it, believe me, he would have been buying me lunch. But it's just the way, the nature of the beast. Not always an easy thing to do. You can see now in that one photo that was real quick there, we had tape around the side windows, and that's when we put the glass back in. We actually use an automotive grade window sealant. You can see all the new panels in place there. I didn't get a shot of the upper bunk area other than with Ray putting in the final trim pieces. But you can see it does match really nice, though. I wish I got one from the inside. Unfortunately, we didn't. But we do use an automotive sealant for our side windows. It's the only way to get these windows to seal with original glass. Some people have replaced them with plexi and stuff. And you can see our Shasta there on the right side. It's in the works of getting fixed up. Somebody else had painted at a body shop years ago, and so it has its issues as well from water, but it's been in a warehouse most of its life, so its skin is in fantastic shape. But it's kind of cool to have them side by side. We do have a Shasta Compact as well. Had we had time, we would have parked them next to each other, but we got a little angle here where you kind of got a glimpse of all three of them here. We don't have anybody nearby that has the larger model. That would have been kind of cool to have all four. Obviously the colors are off a little bit, so unless you paint them all at the same shop, same time, you're not going to get them exactly the same. So that just brings us to the end of this project, and the customer's really happy with the outcome. And in this case, this is a project that took a bit of time because of intricacies that were going on, and they're very happy. At this point, they can address the other issues down the line. While we had the roof up, we also had inspected the vent area above the kitchen area where we saw other roof damage. Now we went ahead, what you didn't see is that roof vent was removed, so everything on the roof actually was resealed, so they don't have to worry about any more water leaks. However, the inside panels will need to be replaced down the line. We did not find any rot issues to be of concern. The way Shasta built the roofs was a very weak way of doing it, and they used 1x2s, but they laid them on their side. And just like with this customer, it didn't come out in our video all that well, but it looked like a roller coaster going up and down. Same thing in our Shasta. We thought the roof was collapsing a little bit. Well, same scenario. It's just not strong enough. So These customers in the future will do some other things, but for now we just kind of shored it up with some more lumber. But we did suggest that they can put wedges in with the 2x4 carefully in the winter months, just for snow loads. In the future, they can come in and we can shore it up with steel. That is what we're going to do with our Shasta to correct those issues. And of course, replacing that 1x2 structure will definitely improve that, but you still got to give it some steel reinforcement. It's only about 3/4 of an inch thick, so you really don't have much of an opportunity for a really good structure. So hopefully that brings you into light a little bit on a Shasta with the Bunk. So join us for our next episode.